In the heart of West Africa, an empire once ruled with thunder and fire. The Oyo Empire, feared for its cavalry, respected for its kings, and envied for its wealth. For 2 centuries, it commanded tribute from distant lands, until pride, betrayal, and war shattered it from within. Blood on the battlefield, betrayal in the palace, and at the heart of it all, Afonja, the fearless warlord who turned his sword against his own king. His rebellion shook the Oyo Empire to its core, sparking a storm of fire, betrayal, and civil war. Brothers became enemies, allies became traitors, and an empire built on power began to crumble. This is not just history, this is the rebellion that burned an empire. If you are ready for war, betrayal, and the untold story of Afonja, subscribe now and step into the fire of the Oyo Empire. In the 1700s, the Oyo Empire was one of the strongest Yoruba kingdoms in West Africa. It had a well-organized government. The king, called the Alaafin, ruled together with a council of 7 chiefs known as the Oyo Mesi. These chiefs had power to check the king. If a king ruled badly, they could even force him to commit suicide. This system made the king powerful but also limited his control. Oyo was also very strong in war. By the 1600s and 1700s, it had built an army that used horses in battle, something rare in the region. The horses came from trade across the Sahara and with coastal merchants. With these horsemen, backed by foot soldiers, Oyo defeated many neighboring towns and collected tribute from them. Under kings like Obalokun, the empire spread south to the Atlantic coast and west toward Benin and Togo. It also traded with Europeans and became rich from commerce and the slave trade. This wealth bought more horses and guns for the army. But by the late 1700s, problems started. The chiefs and nobles began to fight among themselves about how to spend the empire's wealth. Some wanted to keep the army strong, others preferred luxury and riches. King Abiodun, who ruled from 1754 to 1789, brought peace for a while but weakened the army by focusing on his own comfort. After his time, the army was no longer as strong and the empire started to lose control over its lands. By the 1790s, some towns on the Oyo began to rebel. In the north, a new threat appeared, the Fulani jihad led by Usman Dan Fodio. The Fulani fighters were spreading Islam and attacking non-Muslim rulers. Oyo could not handle both its own internal problems and this outside pressure. This weakness would later lead to its fall, especially after the rebellion of Afonja, one of its top generals. In 1795-1796, trouble broke out between Afonja, the empire's top war commander at Ilorin, and Alaafin of Oyo, the king of Oyo. The king gave Afonja 2 dangerous orders. First, he told him to attack Oyo-Ile, a town believed to be protected by a curse. Later, he commanded him to attack Apomu, a market town that was close to Ile-Ife. Afonja carried out the Apomu attack in 1795, but when he returned with his soldiers, he decided to rebel. With the support of the Prime Minister, Bashorun, and other powerful chiefs who were unhappy with the king, Afonja marched on the capital, Oyo-Ile. They entered the palace and forced Alaafin of Oyo to step down. The king then committed ritual suicide as tradition required. This rebellion changed everything. Afonja went back to Ilorin and acted like an independent ruler. Meanwhile, Oyo was left without real leadership. In 1 year, the empire tried 2 new kings, but both failed, and by 1802, there was no Alaafin on the throne. The unity of the empire was broken, and civil war soon spread across Yorubaland. After Alaafin of Oyo's fall, Oyo was in chaos. Around 1805, a prince named Ojo Agunbambaru returned from exile. He was the son of Basorunga, a powerful chief who had earlier been killed. Ojo came back with a big army of Bariba horsemen and some Yoruba fighters. He claimed he wanted to support the new king, but in truth he wanted revenge and power. Ojo entered Oyo-Ile and killed over 100 chiefs who were loyal to Afonja. Then, with his large force, he marched north to fight Afonja in Ilorin. On the way, he burned towns like Ogele and Ogele to scare others into joining him. Many towns, afraid of his cruelty, sent him more soldiers. Afonja faced Oyo in battle 3 times, but Oyo's army was stronger and won each fight. Afonja ran back to Ilorin, quickly building wooden fences since the town had no walls. Oyo surrounded Ilorin and nearly captured it. But Oyo's own men betrayed him. Some Yoruba chiefs, led by Onikoyi Adegun, secretly sided with Afonja. During the final attack, they suddenly left the battlefield, leaving Oyo exposed. Confused and outnumbered, Oyo's army broke apart and he had to retreat with his Bariba cavalry. Ilorin was saved, but the war ruined the land. Many towns were destroyed, and Afonja now depended even more on Fulani fighters and Muslim slaves to defend himself. This decision would later bring more trouble as his Fulani allies grew stronger inside Ilorin. By the early 1820s, Afonja's army in Ilorin was full of Muslim fighters. They were freed Hausa slaves, Fulani warriors, and adventurers led by a cleric called Shehu Alimi. Together, they were known as the Jama'a. At first, they helped Afonja, but soon they became uncontrollable. They attacked villages, disobeyed orders, and grew more powerful than Afonja himself. When Afonja finally tried to stop them, the Jama'a turned against him. In 1824, they rose in revolt and surrounded his compound in Ilorin. Afonja and his men fought bravely with guns, arrows, and spears, but they were outnumbered. Afonja called for help from his old friend Solagberu, a Yoruba Muslim chief, but Solagberu refused because the rebels were also Muslims. In the end, Afonja was killed during the siege. His body was burnt to ashes, so no trace of him remained. After Afonja's death, Ilorin fell completely under Fulani control. Shehu Alimi became the leader, and later his son Abdul Salami became the first emir of Ilorin, pledging loyalty to Sokoto Caliphate. This was the start of Fulani rule in Yorubaland. The fall of Afonja shocked the Oyo people. They feared Ilorin would keep pushing south and take over more Yoruba towns. This fear pushed Oyo's leaders to prepare for a big war against Ilorin. In 1825, the Oyo leaders decided to fight back against the Fulani in Ilorin. Alaafin Majotu, the king at the time, formed an alliance with the Nupe people. He made Toyeje the leader of Ogbomosho, the new war commander, Are Ona Kakanfo. Toyeje led a large army of Yorubas and Nupe northwards. They camped at a place called Ogele, close to Ilorin. There they met Ilorin's army, which was strengthened by Fulani horsemen from Sokoto and by Solagberu, the Yoruba Muslim chief who supported the Fulani. The battle was fierce. The Yoruba and Nupe soldiers were mostly on foot, while the Fulani had many cavalry. The horsemen charged quickly and broke the Yoruba lines. Even though the Yorubas fought bravely, they were no match for the speed and strength of the Fulani riders. The result was a disaster for Oyo. Toyeje's army was scattered, and many towns and villages in northern Oyo were destroyed as the Fulani chased the survivors. Only a few walled towns like Offa and Erin were safe. Thousands of people fled south as refugees. This defeat was very serious. Oyo lost much of its power, and many chiefs stopped trusting the Alaafin to protect them. Ilorin grew stronger, while Oyo became weaker. Even after losing at Ogele, the Yorubas tried again a few years later. This second campaign was called the Mugba War, named after the locust beans, Igba, that soldiers had to eat when food ran out during the war. By this time, Shehu Alimi of Ilorin had died, and his son Abdul Salami was the new emir. Oyo and its allies thought this was a good chance to attack. A big Yoruba force joined with northern allies, including Monjia, the king of Raba, who brought Lupe and Borgu fighters. Their plan was to surround Ilorin and starve it into surrender. But the land was already destroyed from earlier wars and food was scarce. Both the Yoruba army and Ilorin's defenders soon suffered hunger, eating wild locust beans to survive. When fighting began, the Fulani cavalry once again showed their strength. Abdul Salami tricked the Yoruba army with fake attacks while hiding horsemen. Then, in a surprise move, the Fulani cavalry attacked from behind, trapping the Yoruba and their allies. The king of Raba panicked and fled with his men, leaving the Yoruba soldiers alone. Without support, the Yoruba army collapsed. Many were killed and the rest scattered. After this defeat, Ilorin forces swept south, conquering towns like Offa and Erin. The Oyo heartland was left open and undefended. This war was the last real attempt by Oyo to drive the Fulani out of Ilorin, and it failed completely. Ilorin was now firmly in Fulani hands. By 1835, the Oyo Empire was very weak, but the Alaafin of Oyo refused to give up. He gathered the remaining Oyo forces and made a final alliance with the Borgu kingdoms in the north. The strongest ally was Serok Pera, the king of Niki, also called Eleduwe, who brought many cavalry. Other Borg towns like Kayama and Busa also joined. Together, this Oyo Borgu army marched on Ilorin. Emir Abdul Salami of Ilorin was ready. He received reinforcements from Sokoto and Gwandu, giving him a much larger force filled with Fulani horsemen. The battle lasted 2 days outside Ilorin. On the first day, Alaafin of Oyo and Eleduwe attacked fiercely and almost defeated the Fulani, but a sudden cavalry countercharge saved Ilorin from collapse. By the second day, the Oyo-Borg alliance was already divided. The Yoruba leaders did not fully trust their Borg allies. Abdul Salami used this weakness. He ordered a massive cavalry assault on one side of the allied army. The Fulani horsemen broke through, circled around, and struck the rear. In the fighting, Eleduwe, the Borg king, was killed early. His death crushed the morale of the alliance. Borg fighters began to flee, and soon the Yoruba were surrounded. Alaafin of Oyo, his eldest son, and many chiefs died in the battle. By the end, Oyo's army was destroyed and its last king was killed on the battlefield. This defeat sealed the fate of the Oyo Empire. Nothing was left to stop Ilorin's power. After the disaster at Ilorin, news spread quickly. People in Oyo-Ile, the capital city, heard that Alaafin of Oyo and the army were destroyed. Fear took over. Most of the population fled the city before the Fulani army even arrived. When Ilorin's forces finally reached Oyo-Ile around 1836, they found an almost empty city. They besieged it anyway, then looted and burned it down. The once great capital, also called Katunga, was reduced to ruins. By 1837, the city was completely abandoned. The royal family and some nobles escaped south, where they later founded a smaller kingdom at Ago Oja, known as New Oyo. It was a clear sign that the old empire was finished. Meanwhile, Ilorin and the Sokoto Caliphate took control of Oyo's northern lands. Fulani settlers moved into the area, while the old heartland around Oyo-Ile became deserted and dangerous, often raided for slaves. The fall of Oyo-Ile ended the empire that had ruled for centuries. In its place, new Yoruba states like Ibadan, Ijaye, and Abeokuta rose, built by refugees and war generals. But Ilorin remained under Fulani control, pushing south until the Yoruba stopped them at Oshogbo in 1840. From 1796 to 1837, a chain of wars slowly destroyed the Oyo Empire. It started with Afonja'S rebellion against Alaafin of Oyo, which broke the unity of the kingdom. After that, Oyo fell into civil war and became weaker. Big battles followed near Ilorin, the fight at Ogele in 1825, and the Mugba War in the late 1820s. In both, the Fulani cavalry defeated the Yoruba armies, while betrayal and poor unity among Yoruba chiefs made things worse. The final blow came in 1835 at the Eleduwe War, when Alaafin of Oyo and his allies tried one last time to defeat Ilorin. They failed, and Oyo himself was killed on the battlefield. Not long after, in 1836-1837, Ilorin's forces marched on the capital, Oyo-Ile. The city was abandoned, sacked, and burned to the ground. The old empire was finished, and its people scattered. Out of Oyo's ashes, new Yoruba powers rose, such as Ibadan, Abeokuta, and Ijaye. But Ilorin remained under Fulani control and part of the Sokoto Caliphate. These wars changed Yorubaland forever, bringing both destruction and the rise of new states. The fall of the Oyo Empire was not just the end of a kingdom, it was the birth of a new Yoruba world. Out of ashes rose Ibadan, Abeokuta, and Ijaye, forged by warriors, refugees, and dreamers who refused to bow to fate. History is not just about the past, it is about us, our identity, our strength, our future. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe now to History of Ancestors and journey with us into more forgotten wars, hidden kingdoms, and untold legends of Africa.